So you can tell that I'm a person with a lot of different interests, like a polymath or a generalist. And I really think the future belongs to such people. If you think of specialists, knowledge specialists, who are the people who understand one small area best, things are moving so quickly that one small area could be written out of the will for the future, right? And it's just not relevant, or nobody does it anymore, or whatever. Whereas if you maintain broad general interests, then you can shift and change and be constantly morphing to fit whatever surrounding environment you're in. And in fact, I think that's the biggest advantage of the course. I talk about the survival advantage of the course, that if you take the course, when future comes, you may be the only person surviving, because you took the course. But it's not quite as stark as that. It's also at every other level, you'd be more adept at sort of creating scenarios, figuring out, well, we never considered the possibility that this could happen, but now that it has, so that's called a wild card, right? A wild card is something that's unlikely, but changes everything. So this course gives you experience in that, which I think is really quite valuable. And the other thing is just about interest in the future. In the past, it was abnormal, aberrant behavior for a young person to be really interested in the long-range future. It's like very few people were, and it was just, it just wasn't a common thing. But now, where there's this worldwide pandemic, and all the rules seem to be changing for everything, suddenly people are a lot more interested in the future, short-term, medium-term, long-term, than they ever were before, because you can't use the old-fashioned assumptions.
Yeah.
For instance, even university education, we all sense there'll be big changes in that. Even if COVID ends suddenly and the virus is gone, and even if that happens, university education is still going to change, because people have learned so much about the value of interacting remotely, learning remotely, that in some settings that works better. Like, it is remotely possible that you're having more fun right now than if we were in the same room, we're not exchanging any pheromones, It's like some things are definitely missing, right? But that still, like our pathology nephrology rounds, where we show kidney biopsies to renal clinicians, those renal clinicians have decided they want to stick with Zoom forever. It's way better than anything they ever experienced in the past. And it's not just that we're doing it because of COVID. We're doing it now because we discovered that it's better. We get larger audiences. The education's better. People like it better. Their endorphin levels are higher. Everything. Yeah. So there are a lot of things changing very quickly. And I think the course and my sort of generalist polymath approach to life is sort of the way, and it's also good because it counters the negative message most young people get. There's a theory that young people today are too entitled, right? Like you walk into some new situation and you think the people should give you credit for the stuff you've done up until now. And they think the only thing that matters is your performance in this new environment, So forget all your entitlement, and you're starting at the bottom. You got to prove you're smart. That's complete bullshit, right? But a lot of young people hear that, and it kind of pulls the rug out from under you. And there's no question that that is really erroneous thinking now. I think it always was, but particularly now, where if you walk into somebody's lab and they sort of have a preset program that they've been running everybody through, that program needs to be changed by the new realities of the way we're living now, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, it's flawed at the core. This basic training thing they're going to put you through, you know, or maybe live fire exercises, who knows? But
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's wrong. They need to rethink it, right? And so I think it really makes it a better deal, a better sort of contract between you and life and you and the rest of human society. It's better to be a young person today now because of this fluidity where success is going to come to people who can sort of figure out what to do in new, never before encountered situations, you know, not taking something that, you know, there's rules written down somewhere and if you're really, really, really are good at following the rules, you'll succeed.
Yeah.
There isn't anything like that anymore, you know, I mean, that's gone. That's totally gone. Yeah. So anyway, what I feel is that people are going to buy the idea that this education we're giving now is more relevant to the present than the course used to be. So there's a video that I did last October where last December where I talked about the course as a course ahead of its time. That you can look at the 40,000 students at the U of A and you can calculate that just a small percentage of them are sort of brave enough, forward-looking enough that they'd really care about the long-range future. And everybody else is sort of like politicians. They're maybe interested in the next 2 to 4 years until the next, until they graduate and until the next, you know, election or something like that, and almost zero interest after that. But I think COVID has changed all of that. So suddenly it really matters, these things about whether, you know, what's the chances now of a utopian outcome of a post-scarcity world. Right now you wake up in the morning and suddenly the reality hits you that there are all these things you want to have. You can never have all these things you want to do. You can never do it. You know, that's sort of your baseline, right? You're trying to move on from there. There could be a world where virtual reality is better than real and shareable with friends, and the price of precious things comes down to approximately zero, where you can have anything you want. You can do anything that you want. But there's also the opposite, right? You can imagine a world much worse than anything we've ever experienced, you know, like the phrase going back to the Stone Age or something, you know. Maybe people were relatively happy in the Stone Age, but this time they wouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
It's like even worse than the original Stone Age. So, like, and what does it matter? Why should we just study? Because the future is not already determined. It isn't a thing that's already out there. We can shape what the future is. And maybe that's the most important reason to be taking the course, is to feel empowered to actually create a positive future and to figure out how you would do that. So anyway, so you probably had questions about the course, and probably nothing I've said answers any of those questions. So why don't you like interrogate me, and I will answer your specific questions now.
Well, so about the course, I did have a question about the music part that you were doing with another student. but I'll ask questions about the course first.
Right.
In the course, I know with AI in medicine, there's a lot of issues with, there will be or are a lot of issues with ethics and kind of AI in the future.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Well, we talk about ethics almost every class. You can almost say that the course is mainly about ethics because we commonly bring it up, and frequently there's an ethicist who comes about every time. Like if you watch the past couple of years, Gary Goldsand, who was a clinical ethicist, he's been coming to just about every class. So yeah, it's a very important part of what we're doing. It applies to everything. And this coming semester, I realize that you're interested maybe in the one after that. But anyway, probably they'll both have this. This is famous Harvard ethicist who I met at a Termis meeting. And it seemed remarkable that he's done so many great things in ethics, but he didn't seem to have a clue about Kurzweil's predictions about the future and the technological singularity, like in just 9 years from now, machines will be as smart as individual humans. Yeah. And then in 15 years from now, as smart as the whole aggregate human race. And he was just sort of aghast at these things. So I thought it would be really valuable for us to interact like in detail. So I asked him to come here, and that was pre-COVID, and he was really enthusiastic about visiting the U of A. So now he's just going to visit by taking part in the teaching sessions without leaving Harvard. But yeah, then there's the new head of the John Dossiter Ethics Center. He's also coming to that same session. So what are we talking about? We're talking about creating a new sort of subspecies of radiation-resistant humans, because if you think about Star Trek, how are we going to live a Star Trek world? There's one factor never kind of explained, and that is that the radiation of space is so extreme that the current way humans are, it's not survivable, those long space voyages. And even if you're inside a spaceship with some shielding and so on, the shielding would not be sufficient. And the changes in eyesight, even astronauts who've already been to space now have had quite alarming changes in eyesight. And part of it has to do with gravity things and so on, but radiation also affects eyesight. So we're sort of not built for long distance space travel, but the tardigrade, I don't know if you know those water bear animals that, can be desiccated and dried out for years, and then you can bring them back to life and stuff. They're just, amazing. Seems like they must be by definition dead, but they're not dead. They're just sort of waiting for a proper environment. So you add some water and they come to life and so on. They're amazingly radiation resistant. They're also radiation resistant bacteria. So like ground meat in cans, like 50 years ago, they used to use gamma radiation to sterilize canned meat, like Spam and other things. And you would think that the radiation was sufficient to kill anything, but they found bacteria growing in the cans. And so these are especially radio-resistant bacteria. So Elon Musk has the idea of using the genes from the tardigrade water bear animal, from these radio-resistant bacteria, inserting those genes into humans. So we become similarly radio resistant, so that the, genetic mutations and so on that would otherwise occur don't occur, and so on. And then we can do long duration spaceflight. Well, what is the ethical issue? The ethical issue is, suppose you're one of the first ever radio resistant newborn baby, right? So you're born, and wow, it's a miracle. We have this first radio resistant newborn baby. But does that baby have any ability to determine what it's going to do with its life? You can say, well, this was specifically bred to go to Mars. What happens when, as a rebellious teenager, he said, I don't want to go to Mars, Mom and Dad. That isn't for me. I want to hang out here on Earth, and I have no interest in going to Mars. So, and how would that work in general? What do we lose by inserting genes into our genome? Might it inactivate other genes that we need for important stuff and so on? And who gets to make these determinations? Like Elon Musk feels things are so bad on Earth that eventually we need to leave. It's not like an option. We need a plan B, right? And so going to Mars is the plan B. And so if that's true, then it still doesn't completely change the ethics. It just gives you something else to talk about, right? I mean, okay, we need a plan B, but human beings have certain rights. And why should superior human beings have fewer rights? Like when radio resistant babies are born, they have to go to Mars, whereas everybody else can do whatever they want. So they're really interesting ethical issues there. And so but there are really no favorite ethical issues. I think all the ethical issues of the future are like really interesting, really fascinating. What rights should sentient machines have when they're obviously more intelligent than we are, but depend on us for things? I don't know what it might be, but it might be, for instance, that they need knowledge of nature. And since we come from nature, we sort of help them every now and then, where they come from a world of silicon and we come from a carbon-based world and so on. So there are many ethical things to discuss, and I find this one of the most interesting parts of the course. Now, let me tell you, I've never encountered a young person like this, but I know they exist in theory. So in theory, like around the age of 9 or 10, people don't have a sense of their own mortality yet. They feel that they are immortal, right? That they're never going to die. They've heard something about people dying, but it just doesn't apply to them. And then at some time, probably before puberty, I don't know exactly when, you develop this idea that, you are going to die, you are immortal, and things matter, and so on. So if somebody was stuck in that period of time where they think that they are immortal and will never die, then they really wouldn't be suited for the course. But I haven't had anybody apply for the course who seemed to hold on to those assumptions. So so anyway, So let me tell you some practical things about the course. It is a graduate course, but most of the people who take it are undergraduates. But a graduate course there is no curving of the grades, right? If everybody does well, everybody can get a high grade. So that is the situation here. And it creates some kind of comical scenarios. Like sometimes people who are upset are not the people who got low grades, but the people who got A's rather than A pluses. So they're like really upset, but
Yeah.
it's clear that they didn't reach the level that the A plus people did, and so on. Yeah. And if you just coast, you probably won't fail the course. Why is that? Well, I think meeting the other students and the in-class discussion is so interesting that you can't not do anything. Even if your internal decision was to do no work in the course, you would end up like doing stuff and learning stuff because you don't want the other students to think you're, you know, a complete time waster sort of person, right? So, but we have had people coast who got, you know, C's or C pluses. Yeah, but anyway, so we only have one exam. It's a midterm exam. It is on an absolute scale, probably relatively hard, or some people find it relatively hard. But then we scale the grades, and I've been doing that for a long time. Doesn't seem to be illegal. I haven't gotten into trouble, but there also doesn't seem to be any literature about this, how to scale grades on a difficult exam. But let's say the raw scores are that the lowest student gets a 30% and the highest student gets a 90. So we would then scale those up. So like the lowest student might get an 80, and the highest grade is always a 99. So that we're raising the highest score up to get a 99, raising the lowest score up to be in some, you know, sort of acceptable B- sort of range, and going with that. And that's been working pretty well for a long time. Sometimes there aren't anybody doing really poorly on the midterm. But the other factor is the midterm is, in fact, like midway in the course. And we also accept trends as influencing your grade. So if you do really lousy on the midterm, but then have a spectacular performance in the final paper and final presentation, then we tend to give more weight to that and less weight to the midterm. So that also happens because we philosophically believe in the optimistic view that people get better. So when we see that happen in front of us, then we're kind of, yeah, wow, it's good. Yeah. So anyway, that's grading. So the course was created in two focus groups, undergraduate and graduate focus group. The undergraduates, in their focus group, all the questions were about grades. How are we going to grade? When are we going to grade? Grades. Whereas the graduate student had only big picture issues. How are we going to change society, change the world, change the universe? Nothing about grades. So we've incorporated, hopefully, what everybody wanted. What was kind of amusing, though, is that originally we didn't have any exam because I thought the easier the course is, the more the students would like it. That is not true at all, because you don't want to be taking a course that your faculty advisor doesn't like, right? And of course, it seems completely fluffy, like there's no rigor to it, then your faculty advisor won't like it. So there were two changes that we made, because in the Faculty of Science, the Faculty of Science advisors felt that we needed at least one exam, and that there should be more teaching sessions that at least use medical terms. If we've got the word medicine in the name of the course, it shouldn't be really like there's only one lecture that even uses medical terms. So now there are about 5 lectures out of 25, say, that use medical terms. You don't really have to understand what the terms mean in order to understand the lecture, but at least it's sort of there, where when you listen to those, you say, yeah, boy, this is really a medicine course. But when you listen to most of the rest of the course, it fits the concept of medicine writ large, which is part of what you're supposed to learn in the course, is my concept of medicine writ large, which is medicine is something very broad that includes not only sickness and physical and mental illness, but also problems in society, like the idea that the physician is the natural attorney of the poor, and that a lot of the problems people have can be fixed by fixing poverty, injustice, racial discrimination, things like that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So anyway, do you have other questions about the course?
I did have a question. So how would the course look like in the fall or the winter if it was all online still?
Yeah, well, you can kind of, that's very easy to see because it was always all online in that every teaching session except the anthrax bio terrorism lecture, that one would be kind of a how to do it for bad guys, to put the video on. So we withheld the video, but for every other teaching session, you always had, broadcast quality video. Some of the video quality is probably higher than anything you ever experienced in any course. A lot of courses that say that they have video, they don't really. They have audio plus the slides, right? That's not the same as video. You can't get to know the speakers if you're just seeing the audio plus the slides, right? So in our video, you're really getting a very good feeling, not only for the people teaching, but also for the other students and so on. So I don't have any feeling that there would be much missing if we end up doing it totally virtually. And it doesn't mean that we couldn't have any face-to-face encounters. We also have a student group, Technology and Future Medicine U of A student group, which supports things like having parties, social events with food and drink and entertainment. There's Nikolai Smith, who is a street performer who went to law school. How about that? So, more people go to law school than practice law. A lot of people go to law school, don't ever plan to be lawyers, right? But anyway, this guy, similar in intellectual attainment, I think, to us. So therefore, he can understand all these scientific concepts, but he's a street performer, performs with a bullwhip and a balance beam and all that thing. So you can see him entertaining us. And so there is the possibility that the sessions during regular class time would all be virtual, but we could have some face-to-face encounter of a kind of recreation plus education format if we wanted to. and if it was socially distanced and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the videos, you can see that it wouldn't be hard to socially distance what we've done in the past. We used to be in a huge room in CSIS that would hold like 400 people, but there would be like only 14 of us, right? And so we'd be spread around this huge room. And when Nikolai Smith was entertaining us, the people were really already quite far apart. It wouldn't be hard to do that. We've had other kinds of entertainment. Joel Crichton and Mallory Chipman have both done musical entertainment. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff like that. The students vary a lot whether they want that or not. Some have kids and jobs and many other obligations in life, and they don't want to do anything outside of regular class time. And some seem to have all the time in the world. And so they really want to do these other things, and they never encountered a course before where it's possible. And we have money in the bank, because you may know it's kind of comical. The thing that defines the University of Alberta student group is it has to have money in the bank. That's the first thing you do, is you establish a bank account. So we have this money just sitting there to support some fun educational event sometime in the future when the students that term want to do that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, so as you can tell, there are lots of different facets to the course, right?
Definitely,
so let me just give you the kind of range of that. Like at the one end, it can be for you just a regular course where when the term ends, you're done with it, you've done that course, you're off to other things. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some of our most spectacular performances have been from these very high-performing young people who were destined for greatness, you could tell, but they already know that they're destined for greatness, right? And so they figured out how important this course is to them, and they know it's only important during the term that they're taking it. It's not like they're going to continue to interact with us, because they're on to, you can imagine they're just going higher and higher and higher, right? So whereas other students get completely enamored with our way of thinking and what the course is doing, so on, and volunteer in the course and teach in the course, and just, keep interacting with the course for years and years. There was a student who shadowed me as a high school senior and then went to the U of A. He's also a bartender at Earl's as a part-time job, back when Earl's was functioning as it used to. Anyway, and he, in the Pokemon Go craze, that summer when Pokemon was a real thing, he did the most famous sort of cross-campus run chasing rare Pokemon. So he gave a lecture about that in the course, and you can imagine such a lecture would be of zero value or interest other times, but that time, that year, it was wow, like this we really captured a moment here. So it can be life-changing, and you can develop an affinity for the sort of things we do and represent and so on, and make lifelong friendships in the course and so on, or not. You can be like Steve Jobs, and every time there's a new phase of your life, get rid of all your old friends and make new ones and stuff, and constantly kicking people out of your life, right? That also works, apparently. So either is fine with us, because one of the things that has fascinated me, like some of the best student presentations we've ever had are no longer on YouTube. Why?
Oh.
Because that person has such high standards for him or herself that they don't want juvenilia level stuff out there now that they're doing much, much better stuff, right?